I'll start assembling this shutter now that everything's clean. I'll start with the diaphragm. So I've set that plate on there. Now there's a rivet on that plate and it's pointing upwards at this stage. That rivet locates that plate in the shutter case. So we've got 5 diaphragm blades. Diaphragm blades lay on top of the next blade at one end and under the next blade at the other. In other words, they're interleaved. Shutter blades just lay one on top of another. Shutter blades, therefore, you have a first and a last blade. Diaphragm blades, all the blades positions are indistinguishable because the blades are woven together. This is the plate, the moving plate that swings the diaphragm blades inwards or outwards. It only goes on in one position. Here's the shutter case that goes over the top. And I'm just looking for the alignment hole for that rivet that I've mentioned, which is there. And it is, where on this case? Here it is. So I'll just lower the case into position. Give that a wriggle to seat it. There are 3 screws that hold the mechanism plate and the... I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'll flip this over, lift my jig off, pop that underneath. There are 3 screws that hold the plate in position, the retaining plate. Let's get these screws started. I'm not tightening them up at this stage, just getting them run down into position. Check that the diaphragm actually moves freely, that's good. Tighten the 3 screws up. That's good, that works well. Now where's our mechanism plate? Here's our mechanism plate. We want the blade actuating ring and the lens tube. And fit the blade actuating ring in place. Sits in here. It's seated correctly. The lens tube goes on, it only goes on in one position. That's right there. There are 3 screws that look much the same, except one's longer than the others. The longer one here goes through this plate. This plate holds the main spring in place. Swing that to position. Oops, get this seated. Get that screw run down. If you mix up these screws and put a short screw there, what you'll effectively have is a screw that only passes halfway through the plate. So when you tighten it up, you're only engaging half as many threads as you should be, and you're twice as likely to strip the screw out. And if you put the long screw where a short screw should be, it'll stick through the other side and it'll catch the shutter blades and prevent the shutter from working correctly. So it's important that you get the right thing in the right place. That seems good. I'll put this in the blade's open position. I might lubricate this with a bit of graphite powder at this stage. Okay, we'll just hold this tab back with my finger, move this to the blade open position and start fitting the shutter blades in position now. The mechanism plate, or the blade actuating ring really, I have just lubricated that with graphite powder. There are alternatives you could use. Graphite powder works well because it never gets dry and sticky and it never attracts dust, and I've got it. Could use a smear of graphite grease, you could use a smear of molybdenum, you could rub everything with pencil lead, which of course is graphite. That would also be an alternative way of lubricating that blade actuating ring. But whatever you do, don't use oil, because oil would stay where it's put for about 5 minutes before it sneaks over onto your shutter blades and causes you grief. Right, so that's all in place. I can put the shutter case in place now. I've got to get this round the right way. And I'm looking to see, I think it goes here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure about that. Yeah, that's all seated. There are 3 countersunk head screws that hold this together. I'll do those up very lightly, because if one of those shutter blades had popped out of place while I was wriggling the case over the top, I do not want it to get caught and damaged between one of the pins and the case. We'll get the 3 screws in, do them up very lightly, check that the shutter it closes nicely, that's nice and smooth, everything is good. Tighten up the 3 screws. That's as it should be. Now, unlike the 3C shutters, there's no detent spring here. The detent spring runs on that stud on a 3C shutter, which should lubricate at this stage. Of course, there's nothing there. That lever's stuck. Why did that stick there? Did I lift it too far? Yes, I think I did. Okay, that's all looking good. I'll hold that back, move that round slightly so I can see everything. And I'll put a touch of molybdenum paste in a couple of spots. On this surface where it contacts that lever. And here on that post and on that post where the main drive cam picks up the blade actuating ring and swings it into position. That moves nicely. Okay, So I think we can get our B lever in place now. So first I'll take its return spring, which is here, get that over the post, and that is to seat round a groove on that post. There. Let's open this up so we've got the blades open. Oh, that thing's holding me back now, is it? Okay. Here we go. Where's my B lever? Little notch in the back of the B lever that picks up that spring acts against. I've got to get that spring correctly positioned in the notch. Swing the lever back into position. Of course the spring's not sitting where I want it to. Lift it up a bit. Yeah, that's better. Right, the screw that holds the B lever in position has a spring on it and makes it a bit awkward to get this in position. That's better. That's in place. Check the B lever moves. It does. Do the screw up. Swing that spring across against the lens tube so it's acting on this lever. If we hold the B lever back with my finger, I can slide the blade actuating ring back and bring everything back to the park position. Now moving flash contact goes on the post. Here. There's a washer that sits on top of that and a single screw that holds it all in position. What have I done with my shutter release lever? That can't have gone way too far. We'll get to that in a second. Here's our settings lever. I'll get that in position. This is for our self timer. Make sure that the pin is in that, behind that spring there. That's sitting neatly in position. Here's the shim. It only goes in one way. A little notch in the case that it sits into, like that. And here we have the settings lever for our aperture. You'll get that in position. It sits there like that. And 3 small screws hold that in position. I'll take that retaining ring off the back there. I had that on there because I was busy cleaning the thread out. It was clogged with paint, as I suspected earlier, and that made it very stiff to go on and off. It's fairly common for them to have the odd minor battle scar from being wriggled off the camera. But some people go a bit crazy with the paint when all they need to do is put a tiny dot of paint over the piece that they've scratched and the problem is solved. But some people think they're painting the side of their house and get stuck in there with a big brush and paint every flaming thing. Whereupon it runs down into the threads and makes it very difficult to get the retaining ring off. This screw doesn't want to go. That's better. So they're all in place, I'll tighten those 3 screws, check that the aperture setting moves freely. That's good. So far so good. Now where's my shutter release? It's alright, you can all stop looking, I've found it. Oops, help if I put it in the right place, wouldn't it? Get that spring down in position against the case. There we go, that's better. That's our shutter release. Here's our main drive cam and its spring. Now I'll lubricate that main drive cam with a touch of molybdenum paste. You could use graphite grease here to do that job just as well. Make sure you get good cover on that curved edge. Because that's where it drives against the retard gear train, and if for any reason that is completely dry, you can end up with galling of the metal surfaces, which gives you a lot of friction at that point, and it's a cause of shutter cocking racks and 3Cs and probably cameras like this too that use the rack. That spring seated. Alright, now see if I can get that hooked over into position. Sounds like a bellbird out there. Yeah, that spring's in place. We cock that and release it. The shutter fires. Okay, that's good. Now the cocking shaft that releases the shutter is here. It cocks the shutter. That's this little cam here. We'll give that just a light wipe on the shaft with a bit of molybdenum paste. Drop that in position. That little tab sits into there, to that gap. And the shutter now needs its retard gear train and self-timer. Okay, let's get the speed train in place. Still cock the shutter. That swings this out the way so I can get the retard gear train into position. Pivot screw at this end. And it's not picking up the hole in the mechanism plate, that's better. And the screw at this end runs through an oversized hole in the speed train, and it allows you some adjustment of the position of the speed train, so for greater or lesser engagement with the cam, and so you can adjust it for speed. That's in place. The self timer or delay action goes in here. Get that pin hooked up. See if I can get its mounting screw in position. It's not seating correctly. That should be on that side of the lever. That seems right. I'll just run that down. It seems okay. Now if we release the shutter, we'll see what sort of speed we get. Yeah, that's probably running a bit fast for a second. I'll move that gear train slightly and try that again. That sounds slightly better. Alright, I'm going to test those speeds and see if they're any good and make adjustments accordingly. So I need my shutter speed settings cam plate in position. I can see that's very clean and probably lacks any lubricant at all. I just lubricate a couple of surfaces on this so that it moves smoothly over the speed settings. This is probably somewhat devoid of lubrication. So where it contacts the pin on the retard gear train, I usually run some molybdenum paste there, some on those surfaces. This is where the B lever runs, and around the centre. That's all I do. We put this in place. That should be fine. Now I'm just going to put the retainer ring on the front of that to hold it in position. Oh, I've got to look at that retainer plate. Someone's made a mess of that, haven't they? Yeah, it's got paint and all sorts of rubbish over that, so I'm going to have to clean that with acetone. That's where somebody scratched it to death and then tried to disguise their marks. May even have 2 generations of rubbish on here. Yeah, it's certainly got paint, but the scratches may or may not have come from the painter. Look at the paint that's come off that. There's no business there being paint on that. And the paint wasn't even covering the scratches. That's one of the annoying things about it. It's just been daubed on all over the place. But I want all that off. Look how much paint's coming off there. I want all that off because otherwise it won't go on smoothly. This is just the paint on the top. There'll be some in the thread that I've got to get to. Yeah. It's very thin, the retainer ring, so it means it's vulnerable to distortion if it's been, if it's been mutilated by being cross-threaded or squeezed too tightly with a pliers or something. It can be very difficult to get the thing to run smoothly on the threads. That's going on well. There's no problem with that. I just want this on here to hold the speed settings cam plate in position while I'm doing my shutter speed testing. Now where I've got that set at the moment should be 1/8 of a second. A tool here for cocking the shutter. If I can but find it. There we go. And this will release it. That was too fast. So I need to move my speed train for greater engagement with the cam to slow it down. What's that like on a 15? It's not 100 miles away, but it's just not right. I'll test that. I think it's very slightly fast. I need to get my ear adjusted. That speed was actually bang on the money. I couldn't get that more accurate if I tried. So that was interesting. I'll just check that those screws are tight. And I can close up the shutter. The shutter does not have a latch at this point, does it? No. Okay. Fair enough. What about our self-timer? Let's set that. Yeah, it's running down. That's good. That sounds very good. It's a credible speed. Okay, so closing the shutter up here. That's a bit entertaining, this one. We've got to get all this depth of field pointer stuff sorted out. Now, if you haven't taken this apart, and if this moves freely, don't take it apart. If that's stiff and doesn't move, you might need to take it apart to clean everything. I'm taking this one apart anyway, because I don't mind looking out for trouble. So the retainer ring here, unhook that. There's a plate here sitting on top. This is stuck down. Yeah, some of that's paint, some of it's grease. So we've got the plate on the top. Then we've got our depth of field pointers. Now look closely at these depth of field pointers. There's a spring on one of them here, and you need to get these back in the right place. Look at the arrangement of things. There's a little cam in here. If we lift this, I'm just going to unhook that spring. Well, that's not on the top one, it's on the lower one. So we've got our depth of field pointer here. We've got this spacer here. We have this little cam here. Unhook that spring and lift off the other pointer. I can see if I can get that spring off there without damaging anything, because the springs, yeah, that's come off nicely. Now this lever here is held in place with two screw heads over here and this post here that you might be able to get with a pair of tweezers, but likely you're going to need a special screwdriver with a slot down the middle of it to get to that. I'm going to have to change this battery.